So today I'm going to show you how a clutch works in a dirt bike.
This is my 1986 Honda CR500R. This is the connecting rod and this is the crank. This is the end of the crankshaft. When the ignition ignites the fuel mixture, the piston is forced down, causing the crank to rotate. We want to transfer the rotation of the crank to the transmission. In order to do this, we need a primary drive. A primary drive consists of two pieces. First, the piece that goes on to the end of the crank, which is this crank shaft gear. Second is the clutch. This is the clutch basket, which contains a large gear in the back. This large gear rotates along with the crank. This style of setup is known as straight cut gears because you have a gear directly contacting another gear. The clutch basket still rotates independently of the main shaft being the input to the transmission. We have this, which is an inner clutch hub, which connects directly to the main shaft and will rotate with the main shaft. However, it still does not rotate with the clutch basket without clutch plates. There are two styles of clutch plate. There's an outer clutch plate, which has these teeth on the outside and fits into the clutch basket. And we can put this one on, that one on there. And then we have the inner clutch plate, which has teeth on the inside and fits around the clutch hub. Now we also have this pressure plate and clutch springs. This pressure plate would go on the outside. These springs would put pressure on the pressure plate. The purpose is to tightly push these two plates together. When these two plates are pushed tightly together, they rotate as a single unit. Thus, this entire clutch will rotate the outer basket and the inner hub at the same time, thus turning the main shaft. Now when you use your clutch, you vary the pressure that this pressure plate exerts onto the clutch plates. So by pulling in your clutch, you actually move this pressure plate outward. As you move it outward, varying the pressure that have in these clutch plates, they start to slip. And as they start to slip, the inner clutch hub will move at a different speed, a little bit slower than the outer basket, eventually until it's completely disengaged and the inner clutch hub does not move at all, but the outer clutch still spins. So this is when you completely disengage the transmission. As you vary the friction of these plates, you can see how they can start to wear down since they start scraping up against each other. Now the front sprocket output from the transmission to the rear wheel sprocket is known as the final drive. You can have what's known as a Grabby Clutch, where you can't completely disengage the clutch and it feels like you always have some type of pressure. And that can happen depending on the thickness of the oil you have in and your clutch design itself. So that is how a clutch works. Essentially, the crank rotates the outer clutch basket. The clutch plates have pressure, which can then turn the inner hub at the same speed as the outer basket, or a variable speed, which will turn your main shaft. That turns your first row of gears in your transmission, and depending on the transmission, it will eventually turn the final drive shaft. To Maicos GS490. As you can see, the primary drive is not straight cut gears, but it has this chain. This is a chain driven primary drive. A lot of older motors have this type of setup, such as Maicos and Baltacos. The difference between straight cut gears and a chain driven primary drive is chain is a more efficient transfer of horsepower than straight cut gears. You're going to lose a few horsepower with straight cut gears. However, this is more maintenance. These sprockets, these teeth will start to bend, these chains will stretch, and you'll have to replace them, or you run the risk of breaking your case.